I can't speak without swearing, and I've only got my grade 10, and I haven't had a cigarette since I've been arrested, and I'm ready to fucking snap. So I'd like to make a request under the People's Freedom of Choices and Voices Act that I be able to smoke and swear in your courtroom. Because if I can't smoke and swear, I'm fucked. And so are all these guys.
You're listening to Calling the Audible.
My first order of business is to tell the prosecutor to shut the fuck up and wipe that stupid fucking grin off his face because it's distraculating my case.
The official Division III podcast for Flag Plus football.
You're not buying any of this bullshit, are you?
Sit down, please, sir, or you'll be in contempt of court, and watch your language.
Yeah, lady, sit the fuck down. The truth fucking hurts, doesn't it, you son of a bitch?
Booby sub booby, Ricky.
Okay.
Whatever.
With your hosts, Brent Callender and Peeze, Della.
Defense rests. Everybody can fuck off. Except you. So I didn't mean you, but...
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
You may be seated.
You guys get the fuck out of the way, please.
Welcome everyone, you're listening to Calling the Audible, the flagship of the FPF media programming. I am Peeze, Della. I can be followed at Peeze FPF. I am joined by Mr. Kolethras, Mr.
Hi.
GM Kolethras. You can be followed at
GM KOLE44.
GM Cole. And the producer is, as always, the Eagle at Master Control. If you want to tweet the show live and put in your 2 cents, you can follow him at Eagle FPF. Speaking of putting in your 2 cents, I just found out about an awesome website that was recently sold for $100,000. It actually exists.
Is it the glitter website?
Yeah, it's sendyoureniemiesglitter.com.
I like how you just said it sold for that much, and I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah. Evidently, we both reread it. But the thing is that it honestly, there's no greater thing to send an enemy. And I think from now on, I'm just gonna go to Bulk Barn, buy a whole bunch of glitter, and every week show up to the field with a little baggie of glitter from Okan. That's going to be my... And I won't tell him why, because he doesn't watch our show. So it'll be great. He's just be like, but Peeze keeps bringing me the glitter, Rob.
I just between you and me.
Can
you talk to him?
Can you fire him? Speaking of firing, KGP Champs finally firing on all cylinders. Unfortunately for Mr. Collect Your Ass, it was against the team known as Solid. Yep. The KGP Champs wins it 33-24 over Solid.
Halftime lead pissed away.
What, sorry?
Halftime lead pissed away.
Yeah, that's
no answers in the second half.
And no answer for Sean Brophy specifically. I know he's a receiver you've liked a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And kind of been underrated for a long time.
Without a doubt, all-star player as well, perpetual, all-around good guy, strong player as well. Solid really, really lacked defense, and this is where they got exposed. Both in the short ball, being unable to tackle, a couple calls didn't go their way as well. It was just a really, really rough outing for them as well, where they saw a lot of their weaknesses exposed. On the plus side, Ronaldo Jordan had a beast game, 2 interceptions, touchdowns, was just uncoverable right now.
Absolutely. And on your side, it's Benny Goodfriend. No answer for the KGPD.
No, yeah, exactly. No answer for the KGPD. I knew we would be in for a little bit of a rough outing when he struggled against the Commission in Division 2. I figured that we would see a lot from Paul Lapierre in that outing, but Benny even had trouble finding Paul. Paul accounted for...
It's difficult when the guy's 6'7".
Yeah. Paul accounted for 2 catches the whole game, where he hasn't been limited to under 8 in the past game.
And what did they do to take away Paul? Because, I mean, just his size alone is a difficult matchup.
It looked like they were playing some sort of umbrella defense or a 4-1 as well, so that was something that was definitely worth noting, with either someone from the 1 or the 4 dropping to play safety. And it seemed like they really cut down on the deep ball with the corners as well.
Okay. In another game, Prestige Worldwide, after the initial loss in the season, seems to be rolling. And what I thought would be the most exciting game of the week proved to be probably that. They beat VPC by a score of 32-28. What I found strange is VPC really didn't account for JS Grodowski, and 6 catches, 84 yards, 3 touchdowns. Grodowski's the weapon.
Yes, absolutely. Former Division 1 player as well. All-around great athlete, award winner in this league as well. He's definitely not someone you want to slouch against. And
that's it. So, I mean, what do you think? How do you think that this played out? Why do you think Grodowski was able to get the space? Why do you think Prestige Worldwide allowed this to happen?
I think a lot of it stems from...
the VPC
allowed this to happen. I think a lot of it stems from the fact that there are a lot of weapons on Prestige Worldwide.
Of course, I don't disagree. That's the one that sticks out, right? If you're going to stop someone, That's the guy you want to focus on, right?
Yes, but I mean, at the same time, you've guys like Marc-Andre Paquin, very, very underrated player in the lower divisions. Kevin Toussaint as well. Robbie Robinson, I think this is the same problem that Solid have, is that their defense is very lacking, VPC. And Robbie Robinson can only be in so many places at one time. And I think that Lever just found that Grudowski was consistently the open man.
Fair enough. John Larissus had 3 touchdowns in a losing effort. I want to talk about this player a little bit because he's not your typical Div 3 player. What to you is his skill set? What is it that makes him such a valuable weapon in FPL?
I think it's a mix of two things. The bulk of it comes from when you see him, rather diminutive size, just a skinny white guy, but he manages to float under the radar. He knows how to get open. He knows how to not just create that separation, but find a hole in the defense and just sit there and not call attention to himself. And I mean, he can be chirpy in the huddle because he knows that he can get that separation and be open. And I think a lot of it stems from that. He's very easy to get on point with. He gets along with a lot of quarterbacks. They tend to be in the same zone, so relationships develop easy. As you see, it's his first season playing with VPC, and he's already doing swimmingly.
Absolutely. Is this a battle between 2 heavy hitters, or is that just historically been the case with these 2 teams? And will we see newer teams come to the forefront and sort of take the reins of this division, or is this really
Would you like to load that question some more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
it's gonna be fun.
I think that right now the division is too deep to call either of these teams heavy hitters. If there was one, Prestige Worldwide is closer to it, being the defending Division 3 champions, despite a few of their losses. I think that at this point right now, this division is too deep, and there's too many teams who have been doing much stronger than these two to put them at the forefront.
And the thing is that a lot of times, and I've mentioned this in every article, every season I've mentioned at least one point or another, is that a lot of times we don't necessarily consider teams that come from lower division or talent that comes from lower division, but we've seen guys like NCAA level athletes, not necessarily football players, but NCAA level athletes playing in as low as Division 5. A lot of times we don't know these guys, we don't know who they are. They come up through the ranks and
Fredo Placius played in Div 5 and he's a CFL player.
There we go.
So it all depends on who you know and who you don't.
Exactly. And in a league like this, a team that's got a lot of talent and say Division 4 adds a player here or there, can move up, and all of a sudden, hey, why is this team doing so well? A team like Sea Assassins in their first season. Buddies is a huge example of that. Lasso's making key additions here and there. And we'll talk a little bit about some of these teams in the next segment. But so that was my question is so to you're thinking essentially that the divisions become such a beast in its own that you can't call sort of these historical powerhouses be powerhouses.
Yeah, absolutely. The league is changing so much for the better. And we touched upon it a little bit at the field as well, is that where you're seeing some of the more established teams struggle in the lower divisions because new teams are starting to adapt around them. And it's an interesting phenomenon to see that at the top, the established teams are the kings, but the lower you go, the more established teams tend to be a little bit more diluted.
Well, it's almost as if they stay stuck in that division and unable to move up, and that may be the reason. In another game between sort of an up-and-coming power and a team that's been around a while, we have the Regiment beating Bengals 30-28. Is this proof to you that the Regiment is more than just a strong Div 4 team? Do they belong in this competition?
I think so, absolutely. I think they have a lot of players who play well together. They have a ton of football knowledge on this team. I think they've been pigeonholed as a Div 4 team because of their quarterbacking and a few guys who rose amongst the ranks, but at the same time, having the Cooks on this team, having Corey Cook on this team, having the Millers on this team, it's another facet as well. Judai Alexi, it's a very, very deep roster, and you don't get it at first glance. It's only when you really examine this team do you see their strength. And
you mentioned quarterbacking. Doug McKernan going 15 for 19. Kernan McDoug, as we call him last season on Div 5 podcast, or Div D podcast. He went 15 for 19, very efficient. What does he do well that's allowed him to adjust as he moves through the divisions in FPF?
You never really know if Doug is a passing quarterback or a running quarterback.
Fair.
He's the first person to say he's the slowest slowest quarterback in the division, but that's definitely not the case.
Yeah, he's never seen Fred Morris at run, is the case.
I think also it comes from he knows how to really bait a defense. Like, even if he takes off on a run, he'll still do that pump 20 yards downfield, because one time out of 10, it's still going to work and someone will jump.
Yeah.
And that's entertaining to watch. But, however, aside from that, for the most part, he's very well versed in this league. He knows how to be successful. 2-time championship winner now. I think that he's one of the more underrated QBs in Div 3.
I'd agree. So let's move on. Let's look at some teams in general. Let's look at some of the undefeated teams. Mm-hmm. I want you to tell me who you think is really the real deal and who do you think will falter as we move on. We have some teams at 3-0. We have the Bearskins, Passive Prime, OTF, Wild Boys, and Predators. The Predators not being perfect necessarily. They have a minor blemish and a tie. I am completely blinded and can't read the script.
Yep.
So I'll keep talking about Predators for a little while.
The other teams there on the fence, Wild Boys. And then I'm getting my eyesight back.
All right, let's start with Bearskins. I just saw Bearskins on the list. Winning,
I think they're
now I go 3-0.
Yeah, they're 3-0 right now. I'm not entirely sure if they're a product of their schedule or if with their added depth, they're the real deal. Having both Jacob Peterson and Marco Bertoldi full-time. Adding J.M. LaPlante, who's a huge pickup for anyone who hasn't followed the league in the last little while, because J.M. was huge back in the day. Played on Notre Dame, very, very solid player, championship winner in FPF, but not someone who's a household name because of his absence from the league from the last little while.
All right, and before we go to the next team, we did get a tweet in from Ryan O'Reilly. He asked, Texas Bearmans got a huge, he says in caps, win against the Moose. So I'm going to stop reading this question. Is this the beginning of a new chapter for this team?
In all honesty, I was really impressed with how Texas Bearmans played, especially Jalen Grandison. Phenomenal athlete, fantastic receiver. However, they also beat a team without a QB and with no defense. I think if we start seeing more of a trend from this team...
Not only no defense, and I know because I played for Moose, like, it's a complete disregard for defense as a concept and in its own existence.
Because the formula for Moose is really ball control, offenses score, and then we'll let the other team score as fast as possible so we get the ball back.
And eventually bank on the fact that most teams will make a mistake before we do.
Yes.
Is the idea.
And when you don't have your flagship QB and you have two guys filling in who don't have that experience in that repertoire.
That's Mike Adana and Angelo Garofalo.
Yeah, Mike Adana and Angelo Garofalo respectively. Garofalo did a great job but just couldn't really punch it in and didn't have that familiarity with his receivers yet.
Agreed.
So I think that right now, just the idea that Texas Bearmans beat a team without their QB. We have another tweet in as well from Brent Callender. I'm just going to finish my thought. They beat up on a team without a QB. I'd like to see them do it against some of the more established teams in Div 3 rather than, say, another team which has struggled in Div 3.
Yeah, but I would say though, like I've liked this team from the first time I've seen them. I haven't seen them in person now. I'm still impressed. They play with a tremendous amount of speed. They're all over the field on defense. They have a lot of guys who can make plays on offense as well. So again, are they there? Not necessarily. At the same time, I think that they have the potential to surprise a lot of teams.
Tweeted from Brent Callender. Thanks for the love towards the regiment, but do you think our team can survive in the QB Deep Division 3 without a rusher? That's a stupid question because of the athletes you have and who you were able to contain Jameel Springer. I mean, you guys, the Richmond do have the ability to shuffle up. Mo, by the way, on the couch, Brent, just for to know who's sipping the haterade and who's not, Mo said nope. I completely disagree. I think that they are very capable. If you look at, in certain situations, Drew Dialexi was called in to rush against Jameel Springer. Matt Rupsick was as well and was able to contain Jameel Springer really well. So I guess based on who the regiment are playing, they can cater a defense and a specific player to rush around that. So I think it's not as relevant as it would be for some of the other teams.
And I'm kind of inclined to agree, just because I think that with all the athletes, you can have like a rotating rush. One of the most annoying things for a quarterback is to continuously adjust to different tempos, different rushers, different sizes. I think there's enough athletes to get out there and do it. That being said, Brett Callender, you're the captain of this team. If you're not happy with the rushing, do something about it. Be the rusher. You're fast enough. I've seen you tackle. Anyway, so let's get back to the topic.
Yeah.
We can bash Brett Calendar all day because he's not here. Past our prime, they're 3-0. Do you think they're real?
I think they're absolutely the real deal.
I'm going to disagree on this one.
I know you do, but my favorite Peeze quote of all time is when asked how he did against past our prime in week 1. We lost, but we should have beaten them. How much did you lose by? 30.
Absolutely. Because what happens in this league is people that are unobservant, like Mokan, who basically pay more attention to the names on the paper rather than performances, would actually say that. I think that there's a group of guys. Absolutely, when there were Hurricanes, were absolutely phenomenal. But you can't tell me that teams that are young, up and coming, that have 19-year-old CIS players, that have, and I'm not saying my team specifically. I'm saying, as a league in general, it's getting younger. It's not getting older. Specifically, as we like Division 1 and 2, yes, they still have the established teams. But as we talked about in Division 3, the established teams are not necessarily the most effective ones.
I tend to disagree a little bit with that. I think that right now, past our prime...
Of course, you're the historian. That's what you do. The past is what's important to you, GM. I'm talking about the future of FPF here. I'm a visionary. I'm not behind the times like Slowcon.
Slowcon, okay. I think that despite their age, they still have a lot of overall speed. Ryan Payne...
That is true, though. They are quicker than you would perceive at first. Absolutely.
Ryan Payne is honestly one of the top tier defenders in this league. I wouldn't even say in Division 3. In this league, he doesn't get a lot of credit for what he does on this team. Very defensively aware, comes up with schemes to... you can have a team stacked with 19-year-old CIS players, as you say, but when you design a defense around it and have them come to you on the field, you don't have to do much other than separate the ball from them, be between the two of them, if the defense is called correctly. And he's definitely the man for this. Also, your so-called 19-year-old CIS players sometimes have trouble getting in that physicality as well. And this is the team.
And that's what we experienced week 1 was a lot of guys who just didn't have experience in this league, and the comment, of course, is taken out of context, meaning we got blown out by 30 because we have a lot of guys who never played in the league. Is what I actually told.
You can't quantify that comment because it sounds too good on its own.
Fair enough, fine, whatever. I'll take that. I'll take the rump on that one.
There's a lot of size on this team. They know how to use it to their advantage, both offensively and defensively. They know how to use their muscle without really getting called on it, and I think they're absolutely the real deal. They're led. They have a great core. They're very smart as well.
All right, what about OTF?
OTF right now, they're very, very good. I don't think they're a top tier yet. I watched their game against Mongoose. They were able to churn out a win. What really surprised me, though, is despite how deep this team was, Daniel White, their QB, had a lot of incompletions in that game. And I'd like to see them really be able to march up the field, not have to worry about those drops, not have to worry about those errant throws before they make the jump to a higher tier.
Fair enough. Before we get to the tweet we just got from Ryan Reedy, I want to finish this list. Wild Boys.
Wild Boys, I'm still not sold, but I think that's also because I haven't really seen them play as much as I should have. Mm-hmm. They will be playing Solid, so once they beat us, I'll be able to know one way or the other whether they're the real deal or not. There, yeah, absolutely. This is the only thing I have right now. We're struggling, so I need to play Solid under the radar until that happens.
Fair enough.
Wild Boys, it's definitely a team that needs to be revisited.
What about the Preds?
I think Preds right now, they've made the right additions, they've made smart additions, and they're playing very well together. So I don't think they're the top tier team. I think past our prime are probably the best team in Div 3 right now, but Preds are close.
All right, fair enough. So before we get into some of the winless teams, Ryan Reedy tweets, who is the best D3 quarterback? And he provides a list, so we'll choose from the list. Dan Lazar of the Sea Assassins, Matthew Rennie of Wild Boys, Alex Lever of Prestige Worldwide, Rob Robinson from VPC, or Hugo Henderson from Exist.
Best overall QB, not taking into account their receiving core, just QB as a whole, Rob Robinson, without a doubt. Has the ability to buy time on his feet, can really find his receivers, is really on point or in sync. Mokan is snoring, and that was incredible. I just woke him. I'm sorry to say that. I would say my top three would be Rob Robinson, Alex Lever, and Hugo Henderson, purely from a quarterbacking point.
I would agree more or less, although I'm going to actually put Daniel Lazare at the top of the list.
Taking away his receivers completely.
Taking away the receivers completely. In fact, I think it's... And all the love in the world to Sea Assassins. It's a lot of inexperienced guys and a lot of guys who haven't necessarily played football before. So I think they're going to get... The receiving core will only get better. I'm impressed by his vision of the field, his play calling, and he's a very underrated athlete.
I get that absolutely, but my counterpoint, I know it's neither here nor there because we're talking about Division 3, but if you look in Division 4 on his BMS GOATS team, where he doesn't have those types of receivers that he has on
Isn't
on
Anthony Lazare the quarterback though?
Pardon?
Is it?
No, it's Lazare as well. When he doesn't have that, it's not the same player at all that we see as well.
Okay. Maybe I need to watch some more Division 4 games. But other than that, look, it's very close. I rank Hugo Henderson a little bit higher just because I have a lot of criticisms for him, but it's never been his actual level of play. My issue with him is always that he never plays to the level that he can play at.
Without a doubt.
So let's look at a quick look at the winless teams before we go to break. Zio e Frate, do you think they'll get off the snide? Snide, whatever.
I think that's not a word, but we're going to proceed accordingly.
I make up one word per podcast, at minimum.
You should really just host a podcast with Duke and just make up words.
We do.
Wait,
Division
you already
6.
do.
Thanks for listening to the Division 6 podcast.
Snide, derogatory or mocking in an indirect way.
Will they get off the incorrect way?
The more you know. I think that they definitely have the tools. You touched upon it earlier, and I think that I will admit defeat on this one, where you said you don't think that Antonio Lani is at the level he needs to be a successful quarterback in this division because it's very quarterback heavy. I do concede to that. Looking at who's doing well and who's doing not, it's super important right now to really be on point with your receivers. The more incompletions you have, the deadlier and tougher it becomes. So I think that they're going to do better, but not well yet.
What about the Brotherhood? It's the opposite case. They do have a quarterback.
Yes. I think this is more just a question of familiarity right now. Gianni Satino is a fantastic quarterback. He just needs to really get in touch with those receivers.
Right, Lassos,
I don't know what their problem is.
Me neither.
I
cannot figure it out.
They went from being a powerhouse to being almost irrelevant in this division. They're unable to close out games. I think this is more a question of their defense, which is lacking compared to seasons past.
I don't understand that at all, but we'll see as the season goes on. Rude Boys
are one of those teams where you see they do fantastically one season and don't do well the next one. I think this is just part of the cycle, and they're just having a weaker season right now.
Les Bleus Blancs Noirs. We're going to disagree on this one.
Not a Div 3 team.
I disagree. I'm starting to catch the fever a little bit. I think there's a lot of athleticism. It's just an experience.
Athleticism. We just had an argument over experience versus athleticism.
I know, and I'm always going to choose athleticism.
Okay.
Every time. Just because you can get smarter, you can't get faster. Maybe. I don't know. There's also steroids. Start taking steroids. Anyway, we're going to cut to break real quick, and when we come back, we're going to bet on a bunch of ridiculous things.
Calling the Audible has been brought to you by the English Montreal School Board's DEAL program. Distance education for all learners will allow you to obtain your high school diploma or prerequisites for CEGEP or vocational studies from the comfort of your own home. It's never too late to go back to school. Learn anywhere at your own pace and get your diploma. Call 514-788-5937 for information or visit www.distanted.ca for more details.
We are back and better than ever. I am in studio, of course, with GM Kolethras. You can follow him at GMCole44. I am Peeze, Della. You can follow me at PeazeFPF. If you're watching, you know that you're watching on www.theunclemikeshow.com in the Coast to Coast studios. And producing the show, as always, is the Eagle at Master Control. If you want to tweet us live, you can tweet us at EagleFPF. And in fact, we did get a tweet from Natalia Zuniga who says, great show. But next time you guys should have the at Ladies of FPF, which isn't a real Twitter handle yet.
And we have a tweet in from Jalen Grandison as well, someone I just gave love to.
I'm saying we need to have more female co-hosts. I think it's a great idea.
Who doesn't want that?
In fact, it'll increase our ratings. So a great tweet there. We did get one from Jalen Grandison. He said, at Eagle FPF, I think we're starting to get the gist of this league. How do you like our chances versus past their prime? I'm calling it right here. It's going to be in my picks this week. Texas Bearmans beat past their prime. Stay tuned for my picks on Saturday.
Yeah, thank you for giving it away at the same time.
Read the rest of the article, though. It'll be great.
Honestly, I really liked what I saw. I score kept their game against Moose. I did like what I see. However, if there's one advice, Jalen, because I know you guys are starting to get the gist of the league, you're really starting to adapt. Less about those 10 hooks and really marching up the field. More flag plays and less tackle plays. Don't take these guys lightly. Absolutely don't take these guys lightly. You're going to see them. They're all older guys. You're going to say, oh, we're going to smoke these guys. Do not take past our prime lightly because they will eat you up if you do.
Fair. So, let's get on to betting. So, we can't bet actual money because that would be illegal. But let's say, at the end of the season, whoever gets most of these right gets a free adult juice.
Adult juice! I like adult juice.
From the other co-host, right? The losing co-host. Sounds fair?
So
we'll keep track of these and we'll
what happens if we agree on a lot of things?
We absolutely can't agree.
Okay.
I'm positive of it. So, more wins, VPC or Prestige Worldwide?
I'm going to go with Prestige Worldwide right now.
I will go VPC. Okay. I think that despite the loss, VPC will come out the victor. Big acquisitions, Rashi Ben Abdicator and Nareg Yasayan, who will have a bigger impact on their team in terms of wins. So, which team will have more wins?
So then it's not really a case of who is a...
It's just a different way to ask the question.
It's a different way to ask the question. So even though I don't think he's a bigger acquisition for the team because he doesn't play as much of a role as he should, I think that Nareg Yasayan is the better pickup because the Bengals will win more games.
All right, I think it's going to be Rushdie and Los Luchadors. Despite all my criticism, I figure Shoshan will get mad at some point and start putting up numbers. Will Zero if not they make the playoffs?
The way it looks right now, I'm going to say no. It's too deep a division, and something needs to change.
I think they're going to make the change. I think they'll get at least 5 or 6 wins. See, I asked these questions specifically thinking what you were going to answer, and then knowing what I would answer, and so I knew we were going to agree on a lot of these. I think Zero Flat will not make the playoffs. Will make the playoffs, but they'll sneak in at a low seed. I don't know if they'll be playoff ready just because of we talked about the roster composition, but yes, I think they will. Who will throw more interceptions this season, Adam Sinagra or Alex Holloway? Sinagra, of course, from Texas Bearmans, or Alex Holloway of Meta Mayhem.
I think just because he's a new QB in the division, no hate on Snags right now. Brent told me to say Chat Town shout out. He's a Chat Rat. I don't know what that means because I'm a West Islander.
Whatever.
But whatever. I think because he's a new QB in this division, it's going to be Snagra.
I think it's going to be my boy Holloway. I love Holloway, but he's a guy he's a gunslinger. He takes chances. I don't think it'll hold his team back, but I think they're going to give away some of the possessions by him throwing interceptions. Is Devin Dawu of Rocasian lactose intolerant?
This is something we're going to bet on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called Degenerate Gamblers.
Okay.
Terry Tam is just walked to the studio. He's laughing because he's had the mispleasure of being on the show with me before.
To what extent?
75%.
To the extent that it gives him gas, diarrhea?
Any.
I'm going to go with any. I'm going to say yes. I think it's more likely that he is than not.
I think the dude loves his milk, so I'm going to go with no. So, Moose plus or minus 350 points allowed this season.
Plus or minus, I'm going to go with minus, but just barely.
I'd like to say minus, but I'm going to say plus because defense doesn't matter. Let's stop pretending. Will Brett Calendar be on more or less than 3 podcasts this season?
That's interesting because I think you put 5 in the initial
script.
script.
And I realized he's never here.
Yeah. I'm going to go with yes.
All right.
I'm going to give him the plus on this one.
I'm going to say no because I'm going to work actively to get him fired. Rude Boys, plus minus 150 points scored.
I'm going to go with plus as well. I don't think that they're poor enough to only score 150
I think minus. I think this is the strongest Division 3 we've seen in a while. I'm going to say just under 150. It's going to be a rough season for them. Although they do play Moose, so you never know. Plus minus 6 wins for Les Justes. They were 5-5 last season.
I know. I'm gonna give them the 5-5 again. They're
That's why I chose
They're
6 wins.
the worst best team in this
I know.
in this division.
They're the worst use of a lot of talent. It's like having a big personality and not
Coming
using
up
it to
to
make adult
Prestige
films.
Worldwide, who could go either way because I think they might surprise them. There's a couple games here that are winnable and some that are very, very not.
I'm going to say 6. I'll say exactly 6, so I'll take it as a plus. 10 angry texts from Rob and Darren about this segment, plus or minus.
I'm gonna go with minus. I think it's just gonna be 2 novel-length texts.
I don't know. I got Darren pretty angry all day today in our group chat, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a few angry texts just because he's a bitter old man. So,
Peeze, you're doing this stuff on the air. It's not really relevant.
exactly. It's close enough. GM, final thoughts.
My final thoughts. Terry just said I did a Russian accent, and I can't really do an Armenian accent considering where we are right now.
Fair. Now it's going to going for 1, going for 2 segment. I'm going to go for 1. In the game between, there's going to be more on this in my article, of course, but in the game between OTF and Mongoose, there's a lot of tripping going on, and the game was called early because of a scuffle between Kendall Myers and Max Leroux. First of all, it's a week after I praised Kendall Myers. Just to see this happen is kind of annoying. I wouldn't have actually called the game because of these 2 players. I would have had them ejected personally, and I would have petitioned to have the league suspend them because to me it's ridiculous that if you're up, you in a tight game, you attack another player, try and provoke a fight,
and it ends the game.
And it ends the game. So it's a bit of a dirty tactic. To be honest, if players are going to do that, that means the punishment has to get worse. I would suspend the players for half the season and make them miss out on playoff eligibility because there shouldn't be any fighting, because it's different from hitting somebody in the course of a play on a bang play. If you fight someone, you make the conscious decision to fight someone. Be responsible for your actions. We're all adults. We all work on Monday. So that's it for me. Thank you, GM, for joining me. Thanks, Mokan, for not snoring that much during the show. Stay tuned, of course, for whatever that show is called.
Nation of Domination.
Nation of Domination with Jim Kolethras and Mokan. Thank you, Eagle and Master Control, for producing the show, but mostly for keeping track of all these bets that I will forget.
And for keeping track of the tweet-ins.
And yes, again, we do have one more from Ryan Aridi. He says, will Zach Jr. continue his amazing streak, receiver of the year? 3 games played, he has 17 receptions, 312 yards, 9 TDs.
Yeah.
I think it'll be hard for anyone to catch him. 9 TDs is a huge start.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So that's it for me. Thanks, Ryan, for that tweet. And thank you all for letting me be myself.